An old friend of mine told me this story. Mia and her husband Jimmy were traveling around Canada in a motorhome. Mia recently returned to Kansas and invited me over for tea, since we hadn't seen each other for a long time. Mia and James' home live outside the city, so they offered to pick me up in their car. When the motorhome pulled up to the stop, I noticed strange marks all over it. The doors were completely striped, as if small but incredibly sharp claws had scratched them. When I climbed into the cabin, the couple greeted me warmly. I've known Mia and James for about 10 years. Back then, in my last year of university, I helped them out a little. Mia is a rather shy and modest girl, she's not the type to make the first move. And James. Just James. A serious, rude guy on the surface, but once you get to know him better, you realize what a sweetheart he is. However, he is very skeptical, so without even realizing it, he kept Mia in the friend zone for a long time. Oh, what a year it was. As a result, the lovebirds recently celebrated their 5th wedding anniversary. And so, in the midst of warm, cheerful conversations, I forgot to ask what happened to the car. But that evening, Mia told a story that answered all my questions. The first province in which the couple's journey began was Saskatchewan, then west to British Columbia through Alberta. Then they traveled through northern Canada. And then returned to the south. Mia enthusiastically and laughingly told how they got stuck in Ontario near Toronto. From Canada, Mia and Jim left through the U.S. states of Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont and Massachusetts to New York. My friend dreamed of visiting the forests of the Appalachian Mountains. At that moment, all the joy from my friends' faces instantly evaporated as soon as Mia started talking about the Appalachians. Believe it or not, but this really happened to us, Mia sighed. She poured me some tea and continued her story. Mia and her husband were driving through a village in the mountains. And it seemed strange to her that almost all the houses looked abandoned, and in the residential ones every window was barred or completely boarded up. In the store, a girl with a good-natured smile asked the seller why the town looked abandoned. "There is no one living here anymore," the elderly cashier answered. "And you be more careful." Mia just smiled awkwardly and tried to pay for her purchases as quickly as possible. "What do you think he meant?" James asked, holding the door for Mia as she left. "Maybe they have a lot of crime here," she answered. "In a small settlement in the most remote state." "Unlikely," the guy added, putting the bags in the car. "There are only old people left here, and the place is slowly dying out." "That sounds more like the truth, my adventurer." The groceries were put away, James got back behind the wheel, and the girl got into the passenger seat next to him. "So, what are your plans?" "Relaxing in nature away from people," Jimmy responded with a smile. "I like it," Mia quickly kissed him on the cheek. "I always like your ideas. But not like what you did with that deer today." James started the engine and soon moved off. He stopped right in front of us. "What, I had to hit him?" A chuckle was heard. "No," Mia cut in, pouting. "I was scared, thinking that you would shoot him." "Of course not," he put his hand on his wife's knee. "I just needed to scare him off with the sound of the gunshot. You know what they look like in the headlights." "I know," Mia responded, looking at the bleak landscape outside the window. By evening, the couple found a good spot in the forest. Not far from the highway, where the trailer could drive. James was busy with the car, and Mia was preparing dinner. At that moment, she noticed movement outside the window. Looking up, Holmes saw a fox. The girl called her husband and happily pointed to the animal walking a few meters from their camp. "Let's feed it." "What if it has rabies?" James doubted. "Does this fox look sick?" "I don't think so, but the fact that a wild animal came out to people is already wrong." "Oh, come on, the poor thing smelled food." "Let's feed it, we have some chicken offal left here," Mia continued to ask. It would have been better if she had listened to Jim. However, Mia herself agreed that she had acted stupidly. James opened the door of the trailer so that Mia could get out. She hesitantly descended the steps and, holding out the container for the fox, crouched down. Putting the food away from herself, the girl began to watch the animal while Jim remained on the steps of the camper. The fox quickly ran up to the container, accepting the treat. "That's it, Mia, let's go home. Otherwise, she might decide to try a piece of you." And Mia became quiet, afraid to scare her off and so admiring the forest dweller that she ignored her husband's words. James whistled to attract attention. The fox clearly did not like this. She released the bloody treat from her mouth and growled menacingly. "Mia. Quickly here," Jim whispered, stepping back. The fox pressed herself to the ground and continued to growl in his direction. The girl slowly stood up and began to back away, without taking her eyes off the animal, towards the door. And as soon as she made a dash to jump into the trailer, the fox rushed after her. James managed to drag the girl inside and closed the door right in front of the beast's nose. A flurry of scratching claws immediately fell upon her, as if the fox wanted to gnaw its way into the room. "I told you, she's a tower," Jim said in fear, holding on to the door handle. "It seems she didn't like our treat," Mia said, trembling with fear. Soon everything calmed down. However, it wasn't even audible that the fox had run off into the forest. Everything just stopped in an instant, and the offal disappeared from the container. "The fox took its trophy," I joked when Mia was telling this. Having recovered from the experience and laughed nervously, the spouses returned to their business. Although the situation with the fox did not end there. It had gotten pretty dark when Mia saw a wolf among the trees. "It's already on the other side from where the fox was." "Did you see that?" she asked, not taking her eyes off the window. "What?" He turned in the direction the girl was looking. "It's just a wolf." His eyes were glowing. "And I assure you, he was just standing on his hind legs," Mia whispered, trying to hold back a scream. "Your head is spinning from the stress you've experienced," James, wanting to calm her down, hugged his wife by the shoulders. "You'll see, in the morning we'll wake up rested and hit the road." At that very moment, the intestines that had previously been given to the fox crashed into the window with a wet slap. The girl screamed. Not knowing where to run, she crashed into the lockers on the opposite side and sank to the floor, hugging herself. James, fascinated by fear, froze, but the scream of his beloved quickly made him sober up. "Jim! Jimmy!" The girl is shaking, she points to the slowly opening front door. The man rushed to the handle. Mia said then that if he hadn't had time, there would be no one to tell the story. "Lord!" Jim cried out, slamming and immediately lowering the lock button. The girl was lucky that what opened the door was not in her field of vision. However, James literally ran into him face to face. "You won't believe me, I saw a lynx, but it looked like it had just come out of the grave." "Of course, I believe you. I myself just saw a wolf on its hind legs." Mia rose heavily to her feet. Then James added that in addition to the dead, shabby appearance, the animal had glowing eyes. White. As if there was no iris at all. And these eyes looked into the very soul, intending to drag you to hell with them. But hearing the scraping on the window, the couple turned to him. Many eyes were looking at them. The closest and most terrifying forest dweller was the moose. Obviously a female, because there were no antlers, James added to the story that evening, lighting a cigar with shaking hands. The same white, lifeless eyes. And in the distance of the moose, 50 more small and large eyes glowed. Their outlines were not visible, they were a shadow, an all-consuming darkness. Reaching out, Mia closed the blinds on the window, and James the other two. Looking at each other, their hearts fill with hope that everything is not so bad. Mia, reassuringly, smiles kindly at the guy. She also wants to feel safe and receive protection, but continues to worry about her husband. The couple did not even have time to take a step towards each other, as the trailer shook from a powerful jolt. The girl immediately dived into James's arms, trying to hide from the world in his large arms. "Honey, wait, I need to reach the gun." Mia steps back, waiting for the next blow. While Jim was loading the gun, another blow shook the car. A series of powerful tremors fell on the house. At the last one, Mia couldn't take it anymore. Tears rolled down her eyes. The blows were so strong that it seemed that either the camper would fall apart, and they would be alone with the spirits, or they would simply flip over and would never be able to leave this wilderness. "Hey, Mia. Hush, hush," the guy tried to calm the girl down, holding the gun close to him. Indeed, the argument in the form of a firearm adds confidence. At least a little. "Honey, hush, shoo. We can't be heard," he whispers, embracing her. "It's okay. I'm with you." And then everything stops. The night silence, like before. James escorts the girl to the bed, turning off all the lights on the way. "Why?" Mia hissed. "We're like exhibits in a museum to them. We need to be made so that they can't hear or see us. But we can't see anything ourselves." When James turned off all the lights, he turned toward the cabin. Mia had said many times that they needed to install curtains separating the cabin and the apartment, but you don't have to listen to a woman. And now all the rabble and forest creatures are staring at them through the windshield. Mia hasn't noticed yet. Jimmy picked up and loaded the gun. To which the creatures came even closer and dug their claws into the glass, causing cracks to form. He lowered the firearm, and the creatures retreated. "They're playing with them." James joined his wife on the bed, holding the gun unloaded but close. The man scooped up Mia, who was still shaking with tears and fear, and pressed her into a strong protective embrace. She even began to fall asleep, which the man could not allow himself to do. One of the creatures got too close to the windshield, starting to scratch with its claws and bare its sharp teeth. And to her regret, Mia saw. As if she couldn't hold back, but a scream of horror burst out of her chest. When James realized that this sound was causing a backlash, he covered her mouth with his hand. "Jimmy, please," she mumbled inaudibly. It's okay," he repeated like a machine. With each hour before dawn, the creatures moved further into the forest. Not making any noise, no cracking of branches, no rustling of falling leaves. Nothing. Only a multitude of glowing white eyes moved away into the wilderness. And only when the sun had completely set, Mia and Jim finally fell into a restless sleep. After waking up, they drove all the time, even at night. If only to get to New York faster, away from the damned mountains. Mia finished the story by saying that when twilight came, they were still quite close to the mountains. And if you look in the rearview mirrors, you could see black silhouettes coming out onto the road. They tried to chase them, throw themselves under the wheels and flashed their empty eye sockets. To be honest, a silhouette running past the window seemed to me a couple of times. I told them that you guys scared me, now I see things. The horror on their faces was undisguised. I offered them to go to the city, saying that there were more people there, the police, and they would definitely be protected. But they called me a taxi home and hastily said goodbye, not wanting to discuss or answer anything. And today, a couple of days later, I was invited to identify the bodies. Yes, it was them. My old friends are gone. And I want to tell you, there is little left of them. I recognized Mia by a piece of tattoo on her wrist, and James's face was intact, but separated from the skull. And please read and follow these rules if you ever find yourself in the Appalachian Mountains. Don't whistle in the woods. If you're in a group of 5 or fewer, don't camp far from other people. Don't interact with any animals. If you do decide to camp in the Appalachian woods after dark, close your doors and windows tightly and cover them with thick curtains so that you and no one can see you. Prayer weakens them. Don't go outside after nightfall. If you imagine something, think that you really imagined it. If you encounter something unnatural, pretend it didn't happen, don't scream, don't film it, and don't discuss it with anyone. If they get to you, nothing will help you.